Welcome one and all to Umami Manga. I'm Petter and this is James.
Hello!
And today we are talking about the 18th volume of To Your Eternity. This book was indeed an arc ender, kind of like we were speculating about last time.
Yeah.
But even though it is an arc ender and all that, it does still appear like the next following arc, which I guess we'll speculate on a little bit more later, but it appears like that one's gonna stay in at least this general time or this era kind of still.
Yeah.
And so unlike the previous arc enders or whatever you want to call them, it's not necessarily moving ahead to a different age entirely. So that's interesting and kind of fresh, I think.
I do appreciate how this volume does give a conclusion to this arc, but at the same time, it was rather confusing to follow everything that was going on in it, from some of the fight scenes to some of the things that were said by certain characters. It was just very, I don't know, hard to follow for me. Did you feel that way?
I definitely felt that way my first time reading it, and I think, well, and still to some extent, I think even now on my reread, but I think it became a bit more clear to me on my reread, and I hope that maybe through our discussion today we can help each other understand it a little bit, even more together, perhaps.
Sounds good to me.
Let's dive right in then, starting with Fushi. So by now we've had plenty of time to process the previous volume. And there were some stuff happening at the very end of that one that we were a little bit confused by and didn't fully understand reasonings and why certain characters acted in certain ways. It's like at the very, very end of volume 17. But the Nokker inside of Izumi apparently truly loved Mizuha's father. At least that's my takeaway. Like, it didn't love the Nokker in Mizuha's father, it loved Mizuha's father. Just like the real Izumi had done before that Nokker took over completely. At least that's how I interpreted that, which is really a fascinating idea, like thing that I hadn't considered like last time when we were talking about volume 17. And I think that whole idea, the fact that a Nokker can love a human, I think was a huge contributing factor to Fushi for him to learn that not all Nokkers are the same. Which was something that he at least said that he had understood in this volume here. Which initially I didn't really get it, or I didn't understand where he had gotten that kind of, I guess, wisdom from. But then I realized it was that there was that part, and there was also, I guess, in the moment he was talking to this the Nokker inside of Mizuha's grandfather, right?
Oh, his grandfather?
I believe.
That's right.
Who had been very keen on, keeping the children safe and everything. Like that Nokker was also not a villain, kind of like some of the other Nokkers have been.
But even in previous volumes, we've had, I can't remember everybody's names. It's been so long. What's her name had a Nokker inside of her?
Oh, Mimori?
Mimori had a Nokker inside of her that was terrible.
Yeah.
But the Nokker that was inside
Funa
ended up being somewhat decent. Although I guess I think she ended up trying to attack the beholder, I think, right? Wasn't that a thing?
There was that too, yeah. However, still, that is still a good example of Nokkers being different from each other.
Yeah. So I think that's something he had learned, but I also think you're right that definitely seeing Izumi's Nokker react in that way definitely was a surprise to Fushi,
right?
For sure. So I agree with you that I think it's pretty evident that she loved Guru, and probably also loved Mizuha. Like those feelings probably weren't there at first, but they just grew over time. And as you said, it shows that Nokkers just are different. But I also think, it shows that the Phi are not, or at least the Phi that make the Nokkers are not necessarily stuck on this mission. Like for sure they have a purpose for why they're there, but I think they can get caught up in the joys of life as well.
Hmm.
But anyway, the fact that you mentioned Izumi just made me want to talk about that real quick.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. And I think in general, it's thanks to them in present day actually inhabiting human bodies that I think that helps them, I guess, empathize and become more compassionate, which
Yeah.
we never saw any knockers like that in the past, where they were never inside of human bodies in that kind of a way.
Right. Right.
So I believe that's a part of why they have, or why some of them have become more, I guess, friendly, or at least understandable, or whatever you want to say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I
but
think we'll talk about that more a little bit later.
yes, we definitely will. um, but yeah, yeah, about Fushi, I love how he was really embracing Yuki's pacifistic approach in this volume,
Yeah.
especially in the first like early kind of confrontation with the knocker that was in Mizuha's dad,
Mm-hmm.
where he didn't fight back whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and then later on in the battle with Mizuha's knocker at the end, toward the end, he kind of was fighting kind of for real, kind of against her. But
Yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
quite a long time, he wasn't actually really fighting her. He was mostly kind of trying to just kind of capture her in a way.
Right. Yeah.
So for to a large extent, he really was kind of using that pacifistic thing.
Right. Mindset. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like it.
Mm.
It's kind of a new approach that he's taking
Mm.
um, with the knockers, and I'm very interested to see going forward if that will actually make a difference in the end.
Mm.
I think that fight with Mizuha's knocker is one of the best fights in this manga. In a manga that's not necessarily known for its fight scenes, but yes, there are confrontations and conflicts and whatnot, but they're not usually like jam packed fighting scenes, I'd say.
Mm.
But this one, I think this one was just so uh, incredible to watch. I don't think it was too hard to follow, but it was definitely a lot to take in.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. The action, as you said, was great. And
Yeah,
the highlight for me personally was seeing how well when Fushi took the shape of Kaku.
yeah,
Like that
yeah.
moment, oh my goodness, it got me really emotional because I never thought that Fushi would ever take the form of anyone from Hayase's, like out of Hayase's descendants.
Right?
But to see him take the form of Kahaku, and not just to take his form, but
Mm-hmm.
also to say, "Don't insult my comrade."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh, it really, like, for anyone who hadn't, who didn't know or hadn't understand or who didn't want to accept it, like, they were comrades, and
Mm-hmm.
Fushi thinks of him that way, and I love to actually have that, like, in black and white, kind of to know that for 100% certain. It really warmed my heart to see that.
Yeah, it did kind of feel justice was given to Kahaku in a way
Yeah.
and his character. I have to wonder what made him accept Kahaku all of a sudden. Or I guess he had been holding on to it for a while, but I mean, is it that he just had never used it just because he was saving it kind of a situation? Or did he come to grips and almost like forgiveness to Hayase's line because of his interaction with Mizuha? I don't know. Do you have a thought on that?
I hadn't really thought about it specifically. I mean, I think in general he has. I mean that fam like yeah that family line uh, is troublesome, you know, and yeah, he has
Mm-hmm.
a difficult kind of relationship to them in general. So in that sense, I can understand why he wouldn't. I would totally understand if he wouldn't want to take the shape of anyone, including Kahaku, from that line, just
Mm-hmm.
because of maybe the memories that it would bring back or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And he's had those kind of violent reactions when even Gaku just touched him. At least that was when he was Perona, but still, it
Right, and that was also earlier on in their time of knowing each other.
true that was earlier on in their time knowing. That's fair. I guess I was just wondering if there was some sort of growth or change in Fushi. Maybe not right there at that moment, but a little bit beforehand or during this time that we see him maybe forgive that clan, or maybe he had always forgiven Kahaku and was just keeping it for the right moment for whatever reason.
I think it's more somewhat, at least along those lines, because I believe even back during the Renreal days and at the end of that arc, I think by then they were on, well, maybe not the best of terms ever, but you know they were not enemies or anything, and you know, Fushi could have killed the Nokker in Kahaku's arm, but he didn't because he respected the fact that the Nokker was part of who Kahaku was, and he wouldn't want to kind of take that away from Kahaku. So I think that kind of level of respect and kind of, well, camaraderie was there even before this arc. But still, it's still a complicated relationship in some aspects, so I still kind of understand why he may not have taken this shape until now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he necessarily thought Kahaku as an enemy, like Kahaku himself, but just the complications with that line would maybe make him hesitant. But maybe I am totally overthinking this, you know, and him bringing that back was just a sign that he had always had him. He just never wanted to use him at that time, at any other time.
Right, and actually, to be fair, after the battle in Renreal, Fushi, you know, went into, well, I guess you could call it meditation or whatever you want to say, and for hundreds of years. It was sometime after that Kahaku died, and then Fushi woke up in present day, and it hasn't been all that long since then. So he hasn't had all that much time to actually take Kahaku's shape, to be fair.
Yeah. That's fair. I like that.
Yeah.
so maybe he did have it all along.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Fushi was fully prepared to let the Nokker reside inside of him.
Yeah.
At the kind of climax of that encounter. And I'm so curious about what would have happened if it actually had happened, you know? If the Nokker had entered into Fushi's body. And now I'm kind of wishing that we will get to see that happen later in the story. Like maybe in the next arc, I don't know.
What would happen with that? I mean, does that imply that he would take on not just that Nokker, but all the Nokkers so that they can live eternally? But isn't life suffering for them? I don't get it. I don't understand.
I mean, I think the Nokkers, well, they want to eliminate Fushi, you know. So their reason for wanting to enter his body would be to find the source of his life, his core.
The Nokkers, I'm not too, at least in this part, I'm not confused about. It's Fushi's wanting to take it in. It's like, why? Other than it being kind of an interesting parallel with how Kahaku took on the Nokker.
True. Well, yeah, there's that. The way I saw it though was like that he thought that if he could contain it within himself, then it wouldn't cause harm anywhere else. But it was it didn't end up happening, but it would have been a gamble because he didn't know if he could kind of contain it or not, or like control it or not.
Mm-hmm. So, well, yeah, this is Fushi we're talking about. He's not gonna be thinking too far ahead.
True.
But I guess my thought is just more so for the story in general. If that does happen, like what is the point? You know, where do we go from here? Kind of, if he takes on that Nokker, like what? Yeah. Okay. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah, I mean, maybe it would end up serving like a similar function as when Kahaku was around, where we had one of the protagonists with the Nokker inside of him. Mm-hmm. And I guess it could be similar, except this time it's Fushi himself who has it. But I don't know.
I mean, Mizuha had, and they all had Nokkers inside. A lot of them had Nokkers inside.
That's true. Arc. That is true. This arc has been a lot about that.
So I don't know. Maybe there is some sort of deeper communication that Fushi can have with the Nokker.
Oh yeah,
but
that could be interesting.
That's just one Nokker though.
Indeed.
And they may have like the communication thing going on, but as we've established in just a few minutes ago, all the Nokkers are different, especially now.
Mm-hmm.
They are taking on these seemingly different personalities.
Yeah.
So just having one is not gonna necessarily control the others, or
No, for sure.
maybe make it so that you can understand all the others either. So
Yeah. I mean,
it's a little confusing.
I think at best, Fushi may be able to kind of learn to communicate with Knockers more efficiently, perhaps.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah, okay.
But that is maybe just like wishful thinking. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
But to be fair, like this arc has been a lot about wanting to find a way to communicate and understand both sides, kind of.
Yeah.
We haven't really gotten there yet, but it's been something that
Right.
I believe it's still building toward.
Yep.
So kind of furthering that ability to understand each other in some way could be great.
I agree. So after that interaction, Bon and Fushi end up meeting up, and Fushi says that he wasn't able to do it. He couldn't pull it off.
Hmm.
He says, "I couldn't start over again." What?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, now I wondered if starting over does it, lose all of his people in the process, all the vessels he has in the process. Does start over mean, we got on the wrong foot. Hi, I'm Fushi. Like that kind of start over. I don't know. I don't know how to interpret this. Maybe if I had the Japanese, I'd be able to understand clear. But Petter, help me. What does this mean?
I can't help you with this one.
Dang it!
I wish I could. I'm also kind of stumped by that one. I don't know. Maybe you were onto something though with either of your two options there, but I don't know. I really, really don't know.
Yeah.
If anyone listening has any idea, please reach out to us either in the YouTube comments or on our Discord server.
Please, I love to hear them.
This or anything in general. Yeah,
Yes.
Always fun to hear other people's takes on different things like this. But yeah, this one, especially since we're both quite stumped on it, would be fun to hear an explanation.
I think of the two, even though I kind of made it off as a joke, I actually think that may be the thing he's talking about, because we were talking about relation and connecting, and maybe it is all just this, or Fushi wants to believe it's just a misunderstanding that they can eventually see eye to eye.
Right.
And maybe he just wants to start over their relationship.
Yeah. Would be nice. But the last thing I got here on Fushi is near the very end of this arc here, I believe Fushi has finally understood the importance of talking to his friends and allowing his friends to help him.
Yeah.
Like, because that's really been his struggle more or less throughout this entire arc. And now I really believe that he has learned this lesson. And
right.
I think I think with that, I think he's going to, well, hopefully carry this wisdom with him into the future arcs and involve his friends more than he did during this arc.
At the very least, he can't hide the fact that Knockers are still around.
That's true. That's one big thing.
Which was kind of the secret he was trying to, keep him away from.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. At this point, surely he's learned that he needs to rely on these comrades that he's brought back. It's okay to interrupt their living. They're here for Fushi, really, along with having their own lives, of course.
Yes, and yeah, I think having learned that lesson, like having that wisdom with him now, is one of the biggest wins of this volume. Because ultimately, this volume didn't give us a lot of wins, but this was a win.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a lot of draws.
Yeah. Exactly.
So Fushi brings back Mizuha's family.
Yes.
They're alive again. Supposedly Nokker free. So
right.
Cool, I guess.
That's awesome.
So I think it's just, I guess Fushi had always been willing to bring back Mizuha's mother. I think this kind of connects to my Kahaku point in that he's not unwilling to bring back that line, Hayase line.
Yeah.
He's able to, or he's willing to do that now. It's almost as if he's forgiven or realizes that they're different people, which makes sense as well. Anyway, it's just a thought that I had. And
Yeah.
in some way, I thought it was important growth for him, but I could just be reading too much into it.
Yeah, no, but that is interesting actually. That's something I hadn't really thought about because before this arc, all of the characters from Hayase's line that we had met were all characters that had or that had Hayase's specific Phi in them.
Uh-huh.
Which is a Phi that somehow, for whatever reason, reincarnates in like within that line or within that family.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just always assumed that it was impossible for Fushi to reincarnate or to bring back someone to life with that Phi, because that Phi wouldn't be around to go back into its body. Rather, it would reincarnate into a new baby of that line.
Right.
Was my thought. So
right.
That makes me now kind of question how it was, or why or how it was possible for him to bring Mizuha back to life, since she has that special Phi.
Well, I think this connects perfectly into Mizuha's section. If you're cool to move on to that.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's move on to Mizuha.
Yeah. So I think this volume indicates that, at least to me, the cycle of reincarnation is done, of Hayase's Phi.
Ooh.
I think because she has this paradise dream, of her family being together. She has a baby that probably looks like Fushi. I think it didn't have white hair, I think. So I think there was implication that it could have been Fushi's child.
Yeah.
And then you have the entire Hayase line basically around her, congratulating her in a way.
Yeah.
And to me, that kind of signifies that it ended there.
Interesting.
Because again, she didn't have a child.
No, of course. Yeah, that was because when I read that, I just read that as, well, like it's Mizuha's paradise.
Right. Which it was. It was.
Right. It was. But yeah, that's a really interesting like additional layer to read it as.
But instead of living in that paradise, she decided to keep on going and stay on Earth, and that's how she was obviously able to come back into the body provided by Fushi. So to me, that means that it would have been cut off. But I guess now that I think about it, just because she's brought back to life doesn't mean she couldn't die and then reincarnate again, potentially. So maybe my point is mute there. But I think it's still Hayase's Phi, right?
I mean, it's got to be. I believe she wouldn't be the same person if it wasn't the same Phi.
So in some cases, other than Fushi acknowledging that Mizuha is a different person, he's kind of forgiven Hayase then?
You mean by reviving or bringing back someone with Hayase's Phi?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Again, maybe I'm reading too much into it. It just he has such a traumatic experience with that Phi.
Yeah.
To him to be able to acknowledge that this is a different person, I think is pretty good for him.
Yeah, that is good, and it's fair. I think it's only fair because it has also been established, and I believe Fushi is aware of the fact that when a Phi is reborn, while it can maintain some wants or goals, it is not the same person.
Right, but he has had those Hayase feelings from Mizuha.
That's true.
In this arc.
Yes, even in this volume, there were some things that alluded to some Hayase stuff. That is true.
Yeah. But anyway, that was just something I thought that the volume was. I thought it was confirming, but now that I talk it out, maybe it's not so much confirming the end of that reincarnation, but it does kind of feel like a forgiveness, if you will. But I mean, if Fushi were to have Mizuha's child, then I guess for sure the reincarnation would be done. But
yeah.
But I don't know. I almost feel like having that paradise moment is closure because none of the other ones. Well, maybe they did have paradise. We don't know. We never got to see. But they all get reincarnated.
There's a lot of like mystery surrounding that whole reincarnation system or whatever.
True.
There's a lot that we don't know. That said, though, I really like your speculations there around like about the potential end of the reincarnation cycle, as well as, well, yeah, your ideas of Fushi forgiving Hayase in some way. Like, I definitely like those.
Well, thank you.
I don't know if we were supposed to read it that way
Right,
necessarily,
right.
but I still I like them.
Okay, good.
um, but picking up at the cliffhanger that the previous book left us with,
Yeah.
that quite literal cliffhanger, it looked, or it really looked like Mizuha actually wanted to live in that moment, because she was raising her other hand to kind of grab onto her friends right before the Nokker caused her to fall, which I thought was a pretty big moment for her, because she's obviously been rather suicidal, or at least had suicidal thoughts earlier in the arc, and now she wants to live. And I thought there was another thing. Well, and yeah, and as we were talking about before about her Fi actually remaining, is another sign pointing toward the fact that Mizuha wants to live.
Right.
She doesn't want to just end it all and go to paradise. She wants to stick around. And I think, yeah, I don't know, that was something that made me really happy to see.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah, really great to see that, and not just her but her entire family together.
Right. Yes, and her mom, like we talked about last time, the potential possibility of her mom having
I
left.
told you she didn't leave. I told you.
Yeah, no, it was. I was glad to see that she was still around as well. Yeah, it would have been really really sad if she had left for paradise.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Mizuha, and I believe, yeah, it was for her mom as well. It was especially in the beginning of this volume, during the scenes where, after Mizuha had fallen off the cliff and died, and she was with her mother, the wrinkles on their clothes looked like knocker veins to me.
Mm.
And there, it kind of came back in some other scene as well, like in this, I don't know what to call it, but like in the panels where Mizuha was dead, and like her real body was completely controlled by the knocker. But when you saw Mizuha, like the real Mizuha's representation, or whatever you want to say, the clothes had these wrinkles that looked a lot like knocker veins, and I don't know, I don't remember having seen that kind of a visual detail before, but I thought it was a nice little thing.
Now I do think their clothes are made of skin. Wasn't that the thing, or was it just Mizuha's clothes? I don't remember.
I think that was the comment from Fushi, as kind of a sly remark, saying that the flesh, like you're just referring to Mizuha's body as the Knocker's clothes.
Mm.
But yeah, by the very end of the story, as we have stated, Mizuha does come back to life, and I'm quite sure that she is completely knocker free. I mean, she was made by Fushi. Like this new her was made by Fushi, and with that in mind, unless a new knocker has crept inside of her already, which I kind of doubt, then yeah, she definitely should be knocker free now.
Hooray!
Hooray! At long last. And I'm honestly really looking forward to just kind of seeing more of her at the start of the next arc, since for such a big part of this arc she was under the influence of the knocker.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was hard to tell if she was or wasn't.
Right. Yeah. This arc, man.
Which made it confusing and and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But starting next arc, supposedly it will be 100% Mizuha, and it's gonna be nice to just, I guess, get to know the real her.
Yeah, and get to know the her that's not as dissatisfied with life. I mean, I'm not saying that she won't have any hardships or anything like that, but she's definitely in a better place than she was before the knocker really started to take control.
Yeah, right. I think so as well. I mentioned, I can't remember exactly which volume discussion it was, but a few discussions back, I reckon, the idea that the knockers, especially in this arc that has just been, that they function as a kind of a metaphor for mental illness.
Oh.
And I think I think I still kind of stand by that. Well, the having the metaphor kind of work in that way, because it could mean now that, well, hopefully that Mizuha is in a better place mentally, and like that she's feeling better and is more, well, I guess, on top of the situation and more in control of her life.
Although you can't really get rid of mental illnesses, right?
You can learn to deal with them, and you can you can definitely recover.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's kind of what's happening here with Mizuha.
yeah. I agree. I agree. Before she returns, she sees that scene with Yuki and her Nokker, and she's really like she's crying a lot.
Mm.
Can you explain to me why why exactly was she so moved by that moment? Was it because that Yuki showed faith in the Nokker? But why did she care? I don't know what was so moving to her.
I don't think it was necessarily about the Nokker itself, but about Yuki's faith in, I guess, the world at large.
Ah,
Kind of, I think, or at least that's something
ah,
that touched me. So I felt very much nearly teary eyed in that moment, and so I could totally buy her feeling that way for a similar reason.
huh. Okay. No, I think that's better than saying like, oh, my friends care about me or something like that. I mean, because they do, but
Mm.
like
Yeah.
that wasn't an instance of them caring about Misa. They were Yuki was caring about the Knocker. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. Like
Hmm.
I couldn't really understand it, but from a more broader sense, that Yuki's outlook on the world of coexistence and just good theme and his sacrifice, I guess
Mm.
that could be pretty moving.
I think so. Let's move on to Yuki Aoki next. One of the MVPs, in my opinion, of this volume.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm hesitating to say like the number one, but he's way up there for me, for this volume specifically, at least. So it's clear that he values family a lot, and he's burdened by the fact that his parents never, well, that they're never home, and he kind of compensates for that by always inviting, a bunch of people to their home and stuff like that. So in the moment when Mizuha offers the glass of water, one of the things that she says is that we drink it when we become family. And I think that that specific part really spoke to Yuki because of his value, or the way he values family. Of course, I think the main reason
Oh,
why he drank it, like the biggest reason, I definitely think still was because, well, he's so desperate to solve the Knocker conflict without violence, and to understand each other and to get close to each other. Like that, I think is still the main reason. But that line about family, I think, contributed as well to making him do what he did there.
yeah. I could see that. Definitely, since we had a little bit of a flashback to his relationship with his parents.
Right, exactly.
Uh,
We were reminded of that here.
yeah. Well, I mean, we had never really seen. We had seen his parents, but not in this circumstance.
Right,
So
precisely.
I like that, and I was wondering exactly why now of all times. But I think that's a good connection.
Mm.
That he heard the family, becoming family, and thought that's a great idea. No hesitation.
Yeah, like what a reckless move that was. Uh,
Yeah. I wonder. Really wonder if his understanding, his pacifist route is possible. I really do, and I think before I kind of thought he was fooling himself, or I really wasn't grasping what Oima was trying to get at with Yuki, really. But in this moment, in this volume, I
mm,
feel like I'm a little bit more sold on, and plus how Fushi handled it,
uh,
and how he takes in Yuki's mentality. But yeah, I'm a little more sold on the concept,
yeah.
and think that it would be really interesting to see somehow knockers and humans coexisting.
Hmm.
I I don't know how it's possible if you can reach that understanding. But Yuki definitely thinks so. Like, no matter what, he thinks it's possible.
Yeah.
And it does feel like we're starting to break the ice in some categories with the Nokkers.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. And maybe that is because they're inhabiting humans and starting to actually have, uh, you know, human emotions.
Mm.
But I wonder if it's possible. But then I also wonder, you can't change everybody's mindset. How do you stop the more antagonistic ones? You know,
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always going to be antagonistic knockers in the same way that there's always going to be antagonistic humans as well, you know, like.
yeah. I thought that as well. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm also more and more seeing this as an actual possibility. And with this volume, it's not just this, well, yeah, this possibility, but it's also Yuki's character just really grew on me in this volume, and I think
Right.
I actually really appreciate his character now in a way that I didn't really to the same extent before.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
Hmm.
He had a lot more to do, and besides just being moral support. You know,
Yeah.
he, he I mean, and truly, that's aside from being like a scout and then being moral support, he really didn't have much to do or say. Even with Mizuha, he just hardly did anything. But
Yeah.
here, it felt like he actually had a role to play,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that.
Yeah, like for considering the amount of, I guess, panel time that he's had in this entire arc,
Right.
he didn't really get to actually shine until this final volume of the arc.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
But I really liked the way he revealed to Mizuha's Nokker that he knew that, well, that it wasn't the real Mizuha. He asked for the Nokker's name.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Like, I never even thought about Nokkers having names before. And it also goes to show just kind of his open-mindedness about
Yeah.
all of that. It's beautiful. His character definitely got me really emotional. I think after the Kahaku thing with Fushi, this moment with Yuki was probably the one that got me the second most emotional. Just
Really.
this unwavering optimism and pacifism and dreams of diplomacy and mutual understanding. Like it's all of these really beautiful messages in this one little boy, and he
Mm-hmm.
just undeniably believes in it all, like, to the bone.
Yeah, I don't think it touched me as much. It's still a good message, and like I said earlier, I am coming along into thinking like maybe that is the best way to go about things with these knockers. But uh, it wasn't as emotional impact as maybe some other stories that we've read that deal with that same concept. And also, this story in and of itself, I think there's far more emotional moments, at least for me.
Absolutely, I definitely do agree with that. This volume as a whole was not all that emotional for a To Your Eternity volume. um that is true. I definitely agree with you there. But do you think that Yuki has a Nokker inside of him now, or not?
No, I'm sure they got it out of him. Either the man or the beholder or Suzaku, whatever his name is, got it out, or they were able to get it out of him. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it feels, it feels strange if they wouldn't, or yeah, because Fushi, well, assuming Mizuha told the truth when she told Fushi that there was Nokker in the water, then Fushi would know about it, and then he would be able to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Although, would he be able to? Hmm.
Well, I don't know if he specifically would, but
Satoru would, I guess.
Satoru would.
Yeah.
Unless the madman is like, no, I'm gonna keep this one in my body. Like, we're gonna work it out. Which I wouldn't put it past the boy. I wouldn't put it past him.
that's that's funny. Yeah, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they took it out of him.
Yeah, no, you're right. It makes sense that they would. Anything else on Yuki?
When he explains how he noticed it was the Nokker and not Mizuha, was the different hand.
Right.
I thought that was pretty interesting. Way to be the Mizuha simp that you are. To know that she's right-handed.
Yeah. It's in character.
It's in character. But yeah, I didn't even notice that it reached out its left hand of all things. So that was really interesting.
And it's fitting since the left hand has always been the Nokker hand or the Nokker arm.
Oh yeah, good point.
Ever
I didn't even
since
think about that.
Hayase.
Yeah, good point.
But speaking of Nokkers, I guess moving on to talking about the Nokkers.
Sure.
So something that was sort of, well, discussed slightly was this idea that maybe Nokkers, or at least Nokker cores, are somehow weak to high concentrations of salt.
Right? I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah. But like it's really vague, and like exactly how it works or why it works or anything like that, it's all kind of mysterious.
Why even bring it up? Because also it does seem like we said, are we going to go down this pacifist route where we try to coexist with them? Then why do we need this new way to hurt Nokkers? Unless unless we get some pretty angry ones, then maybe that would help. But still, it's like, why now? Why are we understanding this now?
True.
Did no one have barrels of salt to throw?
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know. Was it not high concentrated enough? I mean, I feel like it would have been. Because clearly they can swim in the ocean. Like, that's not an issue. But
right.
It's just a lot of salt. They freak out or they burn up.
Somehow, yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, the next arc has got to address that more, I feel like, somehow.
In some way. Maybe it won't be for a little bit, but
right.
Who knows? I wonder if even Fushi recognizes that. I guess it would only be Senna and Yuki who would know, really? And maybe they'll bring it up to Fushi at some point?
Right. Precisely.
I've always wondered if Mizuha's Nokker, and maybe this has been confirmed earlier, so please help me remember, was the Nokker that's always been with Hayase. And that's why the fight with Fushi was so significant, especially in that Nokker saying, I've always wanted to fight you.
Yeah, I believe it was confirmed in either the previous volume or the one before that it is the same Nokker.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, there you go. But again, I mean, it was cool to have like this Nokker that has been really a thorn in Fushi's side for so long.
Yeah, since the beginning, almost.
Since the beginning, to have this climactic battle, and I guess you could say have a temporary end until it comes back, but it's also like the way it ends is almost a shame. Like we were starting to reach some sort of connection, and then boom, it's gone.
Yeah, it was very sudden.
Yeah. So as much as I would like to say, oh, I'm so glad this Nokker's gone, I'm kind of, because of where it was going, I'm kind of disappointed. Not disappointed, but, kind of sad. It's like, oh, dang it.
Right, yeah, it felt a bit anticlimactic.
Yeah, a little bit anticlimactic.
In a way that has me a bit torn. It's like...
Yeah.
I did enjoy this volume as a whole, but I also would have wanted to have some more of what could have been, I guess.
Right.
But I respect the decisions here, and I'm sure that the next arc is going to deliver the things that that this one has left me wanting, kind of. But
yeah, it felt like we were so close to getting this answer, to getting this middle ground, some closure.
Yeah.
But then it's just gone in an instant.
Right.
That was a bit, like you said, anticlimactic.
So, the Nokker that's in, or that was in Mizuha's dad, it said at one point during the early confrontation in this volume here, it said, such things are exactly what leads to unhappiness. And he said that after having kind of recalled some seemingly precious memories with his family,
Right.
and after he said that he ate some delicious soup that he even remarked that it was delicious, and that got me thinking that what he means is that by knowing happiness or by knowing what happiness is like, one feels unhappiness when happiness is not there. Is my kind of the way I read him, or the way I read his mindset, I guess. It's kind of like how, like similarly, how knockers in general, or at least many knockers, have been, or they have this dislike for fleshy bodies since they make pain possible. Similarly, according to Mizuha's dad's knocker, happiness makes unhappiness possible. And I think that's
Yeah.
a similar thing, or a similar kind of reason as to why he's opposing life. But he's also, well, it's also kind of clear that he enjoys some of these aspects of life, I believe. But that specific knocker became, obviously hadn't really been a part of the story until this volume,
No,
at least
not at
not
all.
like, I mean, I guess he in at the end of the previous one he shot himself, or his physical, or he shot the real, or he killed the real dad
Oh, did he do that?
by shooting. Well, it looked like he
Or did
shot
or did
himself
Gu-
in the head.
or did Guru shoot himself in the head? Like the
Um.
actual
Oh, I
person.
guess. Oh, that's true. I guess we can't know for sure. Either
Yeah.
way, um,
Unless it was said here that and I just totally
uh,
missed it, which I'm
no,
sorry, but
I don't think it was. I just assumed that it was the knocker, but it definitely could have been suicide as well. I don't know. Either way, though, this knocker has become really interesting, and I expect to see more of this specific one moving forward. Or I hope to. Honestly, I hope to see both this one and the one that's been in like all of the Hayas's descendants. Um,
yeah.
like both of these knockers are interesting.
Wonder how we'll differentiate them. I guess they'll have to say, "Oh, it's me." The one that was in this person.
I mean, speaking of like names for knockers, as we talked about before, well, what if they just got names? Like
Oh, that'd be interesting.
that would be nice.
That would be, yeah.
But the knockers retreat at the end of the volume, or at least so this knocker says, claiming that the battle in the present is over.
Right.
And I wonder, I guess, how many years does it take for them to come back now? I reckon. Well, I guess we'll talk more about this in predictions, but I'm gonna stand by a previous prediction about 4 or so years will pass, and then maybe they'll come back then. Because honestly, because I believe the knockers, or the main thing, sure, Fushi is a threat to them, and something that they can't, or they don't know at the moment exactly how to deal with. But I think they're even more kind of bothered by the beholder. Like as long as the beholder's still around, it's really hard for the knockers to act or make any progress. But once the beholder fades away or stops existing as the beholder, then I think the knockers can return, and maybe they believe they'll stand a better chance then. And I believe that's 4 or so years from now that the beholder will fully become Satoru.
And we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want the knockers to have their way, right?
No.
I don't even know anymore, to be honest. Like, it's not so much that I'm, you know, hating humanity or anything like that at all. It's just I don't understand the conflict, like, meaning that we're getting to a point where knockers are supposed to be, they're supposed to understand knockers, but understanding knockers, does that mean that everyone dies? Like, did they have their way? I don't know. Or I mean, it doesn't seem like the both sides can have what they want.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I see. Yeah, I see what you mean.
but I don't want the knockers just to be this I mean, unless it turns out that way, but to be this evil entity that they get rid of entirely, um, I want there to be some sort of an actual understanding. Ideally, it would be that the Nokkers move on. Like they see the value in life and
Mm,
living, and don't try to take away the flesh from people.
right.
But like you're saying, with the whole they're gone, then they could have their way. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know.
I mean,
It doesn't seem like that's a middle ground.
uh,
You know what I mean?
no, for them to have their way, for sure not. But yeah, I guess before they can have their way, this understanding needs to take place somehow. But obviously that's hard to know how or even to get to happen.
But if this understanding happens, then they can't have their way.
Well, they can if they want to, but if there is like a true understanding, then maybe they won't want to.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm thinking because I agree with you. I don't want them to just all get like obliterated,
Uh huh.
but also as you said, I also don't want them to win, of course. And I think kind of the complexity of this conflict, again going into like the metaphor about mental illness a little bit,
Hmm.
like this complexity may mirror the fact that if one is suffering from some kind of mental illness, you learn to live with the mental illness, and you
Hmm.
learn methods to deal with it, but it's about living with it in a healthy manner, and maybe somehow through understanding, the humans will be able to do that with the Knockers in the future of the story.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I could be okay with that. Yeah, yeah. It's just, yeah, it's just this arc has brought in a very interesting idea that the Knockers can be reasoned with further than they have been before.
Very, very
Uh,
interesting.
and I'd always just figured that they eventually would see the error of their ways and stop, or the Fushi would stop them somehow.
Hmm.
But after this volume, it's like the way she's leading the story. I'm not so sure. And
Hmm.
I don't know if I like that or not. Like I'm excited
Ah.
to see where it goes, but I'm also like, unsure where she's going. Like I'm really quite confused. I'm hoping it has a satisfying conclusion eventually.
And I have faith that there will be a satisfying conclusion, and I think personally I'm not particularly bothered by the fact that things are confusing right now, because I agree with you. I feel rather similarly, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm okay with it right now.
Mm.
But it is interesting because at the previous times when we've ended like a major arc like this, it's both of the previous times, like at the end of Jananda and at the end of Renreal, it felt more final. It felt more like we knew where we were, kind of.
Yep. Yep.
We were kind of on top of the situation in some sense. But yeah, that's definitely not the case right now, which makes this, I think, a really interesting and unique kind of
Yeah.
arc shift, or
Yeah. Certainly unique. Almost as if this really isn't the end of an arc. Like it is for sure the end of the arc. Like I don't doubt that, but that this arc is extending, almost in two parts in a way.
right,
Uh,
precisely. Which is actually another thing that I thought about, because if you look at like the first major arc, which is from volume 1 to volume 6, like the beginning of the story until basically the death of Piorin, that is one major arc, you could say, but it's really consisting of several mini arcs. Like you had the boy in the snow, you had March, you had Gugu and Reen, and then you had Tonari. Like there were a bunch of like smaller ones in that one arc. Then the next 6 volumes after that, that was more like one consistent story where you had Bon and Kahaku and everything going on during those 6 books.
hmm.
And now we've gone through yet another group of 6 volumes, which has also been one coherent kind of setting, but it's not even over yet. It's continuing even further still. So it's like each setting or each set of protagonists get longer arcs as the further into the story we get. In a sense, it feels like.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I welcome that because I definitely feel like there's so much more to do in this current part of the story.
Yeah, I'm still unsure where we'll be going exactly from here, but I mean, we'll talk about that in predictions. But I agree with you that uh, it does seem like the focus is going to be stay here versus going somewhere else entirely. Uh, Before we move on, I wanted to touch on the battle in the present is over
Yeah.
phrase, which implies that to them they have an understanding of what era is considered past, present, and maybe even future. Now, maybe I'm just reading it wrong, and when they say battle in the present, they just mean battle right now is over. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the way he said it sounded like their concept of time is almost different of how people on Earth feel time. Like a better word, regularly. Um, but for them, time is an illusion. You know what I mean? Like
Huh.
maybe they see the whole picture and they're picking points in which to attack where Fushi is at that
Hmm.
moment.
Hmm.
Am I reading too much into this? Please tell me.
I mean,
Because it just seemed it just seemed kind of strange that he would say it like that. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I didn't really think so, but I mean, hey, it's interesting, and it would be awesome if you end up being right about this. I I personally I don't think I see much of a reason to think that, but hey, I don't know. I could be wrong.
We're still in the midst of things, in the midst of our lives as well. Like that just
Okay, that line that's fair.
that's what I mean. Like it seems like they know the end game.
That's fair. Hmm. I wonder if that could have some or yeah, because now you reminded me of the time when they decided the time and place to battle Fushi in Renreal. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
gave Fushi a year or so,
Uh-huh.
and the city of Renreal for the location. Although I think it was safe to assume by the end of the Renreal arc that the reason why the Knockers did that was in order to kind of push Fushi to his limits to the point where he could no longer defend himself
Mhm.
when Kaku's Nokker eventually kind of did him in.
Mhm.
However, if it's somehow tied to kind of some type of omnipotence when it comes to time, or knowing the time at least, knowing the future and whatever, that could be interesting as well.
Yeah. And to be fair, like going back and reading it, like maybe the whole time thing is not quite accurate, and maybe maybe Guru's knocker is literally just saying, yeah, right now the the battle is done. We'll get you next time. Maybe that is, but it's the line with the we're still in the midst of things. Like that's the one that gave
Mm,
me pause, and I'm just unsure about that.
definitely fair.
But how do they know that the beholder uh won't be there anymore? You know what I mean? Like maybe they don't, but it seems like that right now they can't do anything, but in the future they're like, okay, we'll be ready.
I mean, I get maybe you could just view it as either that they know that they have time, like they're not
Uh,
really in a rush anywhere, and
mm-hmm,
either that they expect things to maybe change in some sense at some point in the future, however that may be, and maybe they'll have an easier time at some point in the future, or maybe they even know that the beholder will at some point vanish because they've been around long enough that they witnessed the previous beholder before the current one, so they've seen a previous cycle of all of this before maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. Because it doesn't seem like the beholder really knew of them beforehand. So
Oh, yeah, that's
these
true.
these guys might be new to Fushi's, I guess, cycle. you know?
That's probably true. And actually, that also kind of makes sense considering that the Knockers at the start of the manga were extremely primitive, like
Mm-hmm.
obviously compared to now, but even well comparing the Knockers' first appearance to the Knocker at the end of the Genanda arc, for example, they had evolved quite far, and they've been kind of evolving and adapting this entire time.
Yeah.
But they didn't. It didn't seem like they had done any kind of evolving or changing or anything like that when they were first introduced, because they were very just bare bones kind of at the start.
Yeah.
So yeah, they may have just been very new to the world then.
Right. Well, yeah, maybe for some reason the Phi decided that, okay, we're gonna do this. I don't know how it's gonna work, but we'll figure it out. Like we're gonna stop this cycle,
Right.
and that's how it came to be. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe.
Very very fun speculation. I'm glad we brought this up, even though
Yes.
maybe some of what I said is a little ridiculous. But I think I'm glad we mentioned it.
If it ends up being true, then it's gonna be even more
I mean,
even
we'll
more
pat
awesome.
ourselves on the back. I wanted to touch real quick on Izumi's Nokker and that love thing, the concept that she had, and just that it makes me wonder if these Phi, when they get into the body and they experience these human emotions, or the feelings that they can't experience without a body,
Hmm.
maybe they become attached to that and they forget, well, why they're there, and they don't want that anymore. And I don't know if that means Izumi's Knocker is never going to come back in some reincarnation, so maybe she's going to stay in paradise, or what that means really. But
Yeah.
I do find that interesting, that if the Knockers don't, I guess, check themselves, they are going to get caught up in that
For sure.
potentially.
Right.
Uh,
And at that point, they're
mhm.
basically the same as humans, more or less, you know.
Right.
Only difference being that they have a knocker core inside of their bodies, I suppose.
Yeah.
But really,
Yeah.
emotion wise, I think it's entirely possible for them to really just be the same as us.
Right. So I again, I don't know how working together is gonna pan out with Knockers and humanity. To me, it just seems like, accept the fact that you come and die. You live and experience pain, but also the joys in life,
Yeah.
and then you'll be good to go. But maybe I'm being way too stubborn. But
Hmm.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see going forward.
For sure. So let's talk about Tonari a little bit next.
Yeah, I didn't mention her at all yet.
Yeah.
She didn't have like a whole lot of like big character development or story, but
Nah.
she had significant action scenes throughout this one.
Absolutely. Honestly, just the title of the first chapter of this volume, Arrows United, like it managed to get me a little bit emotional. Just the title itself, because it's recalling like
You were very
the
emotional reading this
motto.
volume.
Surprisingly, I mean it wasn't like I didn't get like teary eyed or anything, but I definitely felt
Fair enough.
it pulled at my heartstrings a little bit.
Okay.
Because it was like this, because it was that major thing back in the Jananda arc, and like this motto that yeah, teamwork and working together and all, and that was really one of the early kind of core traits of Tonari, kind of, or wisdoms that kind of we got from her.
hmm hmm
And I really think kind of that whole side of this volume, like that whole story at the school, and that whole part was a lot about teamwork.
True.
So I really enjoyed that.
Well, I guess not just Tonari, but they all did the best they could in that situation. Thought on their feet, and but yeah, specifically Tonari, she did amazing. Did get possessed, did get a bit of blood on her in the end, but still, I commend her for being awesome and being a chemist,
Yeah.
being able to figure out what chemicals will work together.
Like, yeah, that was very well done. Like, I didn't understand anything of what she was doing there, but hey, I guess it
I
worked.
mean, something with breadcrumbs and something or other. But
Yeah.
did she use the kerosene? I don't know. Like she thought about it. I don't know if
Exactly.
they did. I don't know if they actually used it,
I
but
don't.
I guess
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
Like,
know exactly.
she definitely recalled it again, and we discussed that coming back into
Yes,
the story last time. And I was like, when she recalled it here, I was like, okay, awesome. But then, yeah, I don't actually
I
remember her
don't remember
actually
seeing it
using it
again.
though.
It's like what?
That was a bit strange.
Maybe it was necessary for some of the chemistry stuff she did with those
Yeah.
bombs and flame stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, the kind of water, the kind of fire that doesn't get put out by water would it be kerosene or oil?
I have no
I don't know.
idea.
I don't know.
I'm far from a chemist.
Well, yeah, I'll stop before I hurt myself. But yeah, no, it was a good Breaking Bad moment, and yeah, it was nice to see, but I was really upset that she ended up basically dying.
Yeah,
Dang it.
that was a loss in this volume.
Yeah.
Even though, sure,
Yeah.
she's around now, but she did die, and that is, I mean, even though she doesn't make a big deal out of it, it is a big deal. Like,
Right.
and I totally felt for Fushi when he learned about that, and how heartbroken he was over just that fact. Honestly, in this arc, I think Oima has made death feel so much more heavy compared to how it was like by the end of the Renreal arc, where the three immortal warriors were just killed and resurrected like nonstop.
Shooting themselves in the head.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I feel like the story is back has gone back to a way of making the deaths feel heavy, even though we know that they can be brought back. It's still
Right.
it's still big, kind of.
It's in an interesting position where you can't really, unless Fushi loses his powers to do that, you can't really go back to the same death having the same significance as it did, back in volume 1 and 4 and all those really heartbreaking deaths. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think Oima is, like you said, taking a very interesting approach to how death is perceived, particularly by Fushi, who,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, could see death as nothing more than a condition rather than a loss. You know,
Mm.
A status where you just give them the right herbs and they're good to go, right? Some video game logic, but no, like Fushi was actually pretty upset, not just when he saw Tonari in the end of the volume, but in the middle when the death did happen, he felt that,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell that he was upset. So yeah, I do like that, and interesting to see. Well, I'm hoping no more deaths. Actually, like no more deaths until ripe old age. That's another thing. How far is the story going? They die of old age. Maybe did they just get back? Are they gonna be brought back to life in the cycle? I don't know. I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
this is going.
Yeah, I don't think next arc is gonna have to deal with that, since it's looking like the next arc is going to, well, it's not gonna shift to a completely different era.
Yeah,
But
but you have said in the past that you thought it would be cool if they went to like a future era, like not just
yeah,
4 years in the future, but like decades,
yeah, like
centuries.
almost like a science fiction kind of setting, I think would be
Uh
cool.
huh.
Obviously, depending on what Oima wants and like the planets and everything, but I could
Right.
see that as an arc, maybe after the next one or something like that. But yeah.
Anyway, that's really all I have on Tonari.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to the next character, I wanted to add about, well, the whole weight of the deaths and whatnot. That while it is awesome that Oima has found a way to make them make deaths kind of feel like they matter again, we also got to consider that Fushi can't bring anyone back to life, since some Fi go directly to paradise, and
Oh,
those
good point.
they can never be brought back. So some deaths are permanent, and I guess you can never really know who.
I mean, yeah, any one of those. Wait, is 11, 12? Any one of his friends could just suddenly say, "Yeah, I'm done, Fushi. I'm not coming back."
Right. Oh, that would be
that would be pretty
heavy.
emotional.
Yeah.
Like, what if? Oh man, what if Gugu was the one to do that? He's like, being in.
Takunaha.
Gosh, where is he from? Takunaha is great and all, but I can't live without Rin anymore. I gotta gotta go back. I gotta go to my paradise.
I mean, that would be sad if it happened prematurely, or I mean, it would be especially sad if it hadn't happened prematurely. It would also be kind of sad if, let's say, Gugu lives out his life in Takuna, and it was just a satisfying life. He was able to lead that satisfying long life, after which he was done. Moving on to paradise. That would be a bit nicer, but still sad.
Yeah, right. No, I agree. Of all the people, I feel like Gugu might be the one to do that, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, leave his bro. Like, yeah, it's kind of sad. But also, he's had a rough life. They all have, but still. I don't know.
I mean, I feel especially like out of his like longtime comrades, kind of. I feel especially for Gugu and March, because both of them lost someone super dear to them, someone that went immediately to paradise, but they stayed behind. Like Perona and Rin never came back. And that's really sad.
Bro, what if we have some of these? So you know how Perona seems to be kind of reincarnated through Hana?
Yeah, somehow, maybe.
In a way. What if Rin also, right now, in this time, in Takunoha, and they meet up, Gugu, and wouldn't that be great?
Maybe.
But it'd be a different person.
It would be, exactly right. It would be a different, but I mean, maybe nice. Huh. Yeah.
Anyway, just a sporadic thought I had.
Yeah. No, but I like that. Well, actually, speaking a little bit of Hana, let's talk a bit about her. At the end of the volume, she praised the teamwork that the girls had shown during the climax at the school, and obviously that kind of gave way for a funny little interaction, or very very brief.
I kind of felt bad for Hana. Like, she was just trying to be friendly, and in a way, and they're just kind of like, no, that's not how it went. It's like, what?
Yeah, but like, and well, actually, to be fair, Aiko had praised their teamwork as well during the event at the school. So Hana wasn't even the first one, but she was the one who got flack for it. But
poor Hana.
About those girls, like that girl group, I mean, obviously their teamwork was fine teamwork. They got out of it all, and it worked out. I think it's just a matter of time before they'll be back to being on good terms again. Is my feeling kind of about that. I mean, they're hanging out at this party at the end together, and I think if they were on really bad terms, they probably wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean,
in the next arc, they're going to admit that they're friends, and everything's gonna be fine there, I imagine.
It may not just be an admission that, oh, we're friends again. More so that it just happens. They just start hanging out again.
Right. But and I guess by admit, I mean more like admit to themselves, like that they are back on good terms, because right now they seem to be a bit in denial about it, maybe.
Yeah.
Other characters, Aoki. It's kind of pointless, but I really love the moment when she came, like she swooped in with the umbrella to shield Tonari from the attack.
I know, I love that moment too. Aiko just showed like how much of a boss she is. I can't honestly. I want to see not just 4 years in the future. I want to see like 10 or 20 years in the future. See what does Aiko become?
Yeah.
Like, is she ruling the world?
Yes, she must
with a
be.
benevolent fist. I mean, I let her be my supreme overlord. I think she'd be a wonderful ruler.
Honestly, she would be the best. Seriously, yeah. And maybe when the story moves into like the science fiction arc, and Fushi brings her back into that era, and like at that point in time she just becomes the ruler of Earth because it's just like one ruler of the entire planet. Yeah,
Yeah.
like no one else can do it as well as she.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Anyway, do you have any other character you want to talk about?
Just briefly, I want to comment on Satoru. That's the beholder, right?
Yes.
Satoru. I just like how he's on his bike. He's like, "Oh, good, I made it."
Yeah.
Taking off his helmet, just walks kind of slowly. I don't know. I thought it was quite comical, but also relief, like just in time. Like, oh my gosh. Whew.
Yeah, you're right. It's really funny, and he has like the training wheels on the bike as well. It's so cute,
Right.
and it's so vastly different from how we're used to seeing him.
Right. So true.
Uh,
So true. I mean, but it's also, this isn't the first time that he saved Fushi's friends, but this is a pretty big time and moment to do so. Where before I don't know, he may have not done anything. Either there is some sort of compassion that's brewing in him, or he just understands that these people are very important to Fushi,
right.
And his growth, or maybe just love.
Maybe that could also be the fact that he is in a human body, that he's
right.
Similar to the Nokkers, that he's also beginning to feel more and more of those feelings because of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I believe it was mentioned. Maybe I'm making this up, but I have some kind of memory at least that he mentioned at some point earlier in the arc that he is like it's not like a switch is being flipped like for him in his transition.
Right.
It is like a gradual thing.
Yeah.
So supposedly, yeah, it makes sense that he would kind of slowly but steadily start acting more human, little by little.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. That's all I have, I think. Yeah.
All right, that was all the characters. As I kind of touched on a little earlier, I feel like this volume, it didn't end in a true victory, so, kind of like other arcs have ended. I don't know if it ended in a draw or if it ended in defeat, but it certainly wasn't a true victory at the very least. Like some big things, obviously, like the Knockers got away, and Tonari died, as we were talking about. And yeah, just in general, it had a feeling to it that just wasn't satisfying in the same way, I guess, that we're used to.
Yeah, I agree. Now, to that ending's credit, we do have Mizuha and her family back.
Yes.
So that, in a sense, is a win. Knocker free. Like that's a win. But I agree with you that there's wins and losses. Like it's not necessarily as big of a triumph, or not even that. It's not a triumph compared to the other ending of the arcs.
Yeah.
It feels like, I don't know, there's more to be said, and clearly there is. So I guess we will see where that goes.
But I like this kind of fresh, I guess, take on an ending of such a major kind of part like this personally.
That's fair. It is different from what we've experienced before. So, and I could appreciate that. But I gotta say, I don't know if I like it as much or even really like it that much, especially compared to what we've experienced so far. I mean, I'm so happy that Mizuha and her family are here and together and seemingly on great terms. Like, I'm so happy for that. But there's like so many other things that are just confusing and unaddressed and really just up in limbo that I can't be as satisfied as I was or as I feel like I should be with the end of an arc.
Fair. And I think that's kind of the point maybe about this end here. I don't think Oima is trying to satisfy us necessarily with this.
No, I hope not. Okay, well, all right. No, I mean, there's some things to be happy about, but
right. But yeah, so about, I guess, our predictions, I believe this coming arc will feature a lot more cooperation between Fushi and his friends. he is since he has, or he ought to have learned by now, the importance of that. So he is going to involve them a lot more, and he's going to allow them to help him and to, yeah, work along with him.
Yeah. I just can't help it. My immediate thoughts, my predictions are ships. So
go for it.
I think the Yuki and the Mizuha ship is very much alive. I felt like it was kind of not even existent really throughout this entire volume until that end point. Well, I was complaining about how I didn't understand why she was crying. It's clear that was for whatever reason, it was impactful for her, and Yuki kind of put himself in a good place in friendship, and I could see that evolving into one that is romantic. Now, I don't know exactly what's happening with Hana. Obviously, Hana is trying to make up with Mizuha, and she's the first one to run to her at the end of this volume. So there's still potential for that, I suppose.
Yeah.
It is rather complicated what was going on, especially what were Mizuha's actions, what were the Nokker's actions.
Exactly. Yeah, and as I said earlier, like I'm excited to for the next arc to begin so that we can actually get a clear view of Mizuha kind of for the first time.
Well, I wonder if there's going to be some sort of talk between the two. Is like, okay, what happened?
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes friendships don't have that, unless maybe you're a married couple, maybe. But sometimes friendships just go on and you just don't talk about it. Or if you do talk about it, it's on the offhand. You don't just sit down and say, "Okay, let's talk." It depends on the friendship, but I think especially with younger people, it just kind of naturally flows into hanging out again versus having a big moment or a talking moment. But regardless, I would like to see how their friendship is going, and I expect it to be pretty solid, like back or closer than ever.
Yeah.
And who knows what that could form into, but I'm not counting Yuki out. In fact, I am kind of more on the Yuki Mizuha ship because Yuki, as we both talked about, has grown in my opinion, or in my opinion of him.
Right.
I think there is a lot of merit to his character, and I think he's gonna bring more into this next arc that he ever has before.
Yeah.
And part of that will be with Mizuha, is what I'm predicting.
I think I'm also leaning more so toward a Yuki Mizuha ship rather than a Hana Mizuha ship, because I think that seems to maybe be a more mutual thing, and especially from Yuki's point of, or well, from his side of it. Well, obviously he has been kind of obsessed with her this entire time, and it's been very clear. He's not hiding it at all.
No.
And I think I can't remember exactly now, but it was in the previous volume. I believe Yuki said that his reason for going after Mizuha was to confess his feelings for her or something like that. Maybe not confess, but something about his feelings for her. And I believe it, that Hana said that, yeah, like I'm gonna help you do that or something like that. So it feels like, with that in mind, if I'm remembering this correctly. Sadly, these volumes don't come out as frequently as I wish they would, but then it kind of makes it sound like Hana is supporting, I guess, the Mizuha Yuki ship, which, if that's the case, then yeah, I'm more on that ship.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I could totally see her supporting that. I also wonder if it goes the other way, if that's just her maybe not truly acknowledging her feelings. Or
could be.
I don't know.
Or just a personality thing, like maybe she is a bit more withdrawn and maybe not as vocal about how she feels and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely could go either way, but yeah.
Yeah. But there's another ship that I'm gonna talk about, and it's the Fushi Tonari. I think because of what happens in this volume, and maybe this is just wishful thinking, in terms of Mizuha and Fushi, I don't think it's going to happen, because her going to paradise, having that vision, but not accepting it and continue to live with her family, to
Right.
me tells me that she's able to move on from the Hayase obsession with having Fushi's baby
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
just separating from that and being able to live her own life, uh, and not be obsessed with Fushi anymore. So I think it's just healthier that
Mm.
that ship never happens. And what else happens? Well, I guess Tonari's here, so we might as well. No, I think they both have a strong chemistry with
Yeah.
each other, and they all mean the world to him. But I think Tonari has become, out of all the people besides maybe Bone, I think the person he's the closest to.
I agree. I mean, totally. And I mean, we've been talking about the possibility of this ship ever since I believe Volume 6.
Yeah.
The hints have been there ever since then, and it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely with you there. But I have to comment on the thing you said about Mizuha,
Oh, yes,
because
sure.
obviously, well, earlier in this discussion here, we talked about the possibility of, or you brought up the possibility of that paradise vision of hers, representing kind of breaking the reincarnation cycle of
Hmm.
Hayase's Phi. While that might not necessarily be the case,
Yeah.
obviously we don't know
Who
for
knows?
sure. However, what might what may be the case is what you said about how the will of Hayase being broken after
Oh.
all of these generations. Like maybe not the reincarnation itself, but the will. Like the will to reproduce with Fushi.
But wasn't that the will that was actually reincarnating? Like, can you reincarnate without that will?
I guess I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember what they said when they mentioned the reincarnation, because it could have sworn it was like having a strong will, or a strong feeling to reincarnate or something.
I don't remember many details surrounding the reasons for why the reincarnations occurs at
It's
all.
been a
So,
while.
yeah, but and I mean, I guess if there is a connection to that, then yeah, I guess it would break that as well. It would break the reincarnation too. But
Yeah.
regardless, I hope you're onto something about the will, or about Hayase's will being finally kind of broken here, because
Yeah.
well, if it isn't, then yeah, Misaha is going to still be very troubled, and she's going to pose some kind of, well, there's going to be trouble. Like it would I guess essentially be Kahaku all over again, maybe sort of.
Yeah. You know, even with the Nokker gone, it's like, wouldn't she still obsess over Fushi? Maybe not as much, but
I mean, if she still has Hayase's will, regardless of the knocker or not, yeah, she
yeah.
would be obsessing with over Fuji. So I hope that is gone. I hope it is broken.
Yeah, I agree. I really hope that's at least what we can take from that paradise vision.
Yeah.
Besides that, she died.
Mm.
Now, there is another way you could take that, though, is that this strengthens her goal to have Fushi's child, um, and make that paradise a reality. But I don't know. I don't think that's where the story is going. Although, if you had asked me a couple volumes ago, maybe I would have been a little more conflicted.
Hmm.
What is love, Fushi? What is love?
Oh yeah,
Whatever she says.
that's right.
I think that they will have a moment at one point.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how it'll go down. Maybe it'll be a rejection. Maybe it'll be just kind of a, hey, that was weird, huh? Or maybe they'll come to their own ideas of what love is, without actually becoming a thing. But that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, yeah.
But a big reason why I bring up all of this is that, since we're talking about the future, and I've mentioned this before, but I want to keep mentioning, is that I want Fushi to become a father, or mother, whatever. I want him to
Mm.
have a child. I want him to experience parenthood, and have that be the next step. Um,
Yeah.
Although it does, you know, the whole beholder thing is quite troublesome. So I don't know exactly if that's going to be in game, but I still feel like that should be.
But he should have plenty of time before becoming, like, I guess, a true beholder. Or well, okay, well, he
Only has 4
he
years.
yeah. But I mean, before he becomes, I guess, exactly, I guess, as the Beholder was at the
True.
beginning of the story. He
True.
can still remain somewhat human-like, probably, and have a family. I reckon. Um, so I don't think we're gonna get like I'm with you in hoping that he will like, get to experience something like that at some point, but I don't think the
Uh-huh.
next arc is going to deal with that.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. That's fair. If anything, it would deal with like maybe courtship of potential partner, you know?
Definitely, I definitely could see it going more in that direction, because I feel like either early on in the coming arc or right before it, like between this and the next volume. Either way, sometime very very soon, there's going to be like a time skip of 4 or so years,
Hmm.
and that way, all of our characters are going to be aged up a little bit, like Tonari and Mizuha, Yuki, Hana, and all of them,
Hmm.
and they're going to be more at an age where there's going to be more stuff like that, I guess,
Oh,
or at least
wow,
the
wow.
possibilities
Sorry.
for them. um, and and obviously Fushi's full, well, him taking over after the Beholder and the Beholder fully becoming Satoru properly. I think
Hmm.
I think honestly, I believe we're going to see that as soon as the next volume. Like we're going to see that happen with Satoru.
Mm. Wow.
And so that basically the entire or the majority of the following arc is going to deal with Fushi's, well, at least partially going to deal with Fushi in this new role, kind of, and not having the Beholder to rely on whatsoever. I think that's going to be basically all of the next arc, and combining that, I suppose, with adolescence, teenage um, drama, maybe, um, or like high school stuff, uh,
Uh-huh.
whatever comes with that type of life, as well as the return of the Nokkers now that the Beholder is gone. Like, I think that's basically going to be it.
Yeah. Gosh, I wonder how, in what way they'll return.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got to be similar. Will there be a future evolution of the Knockers again? I don't know.
exactly. Right. I wouldn't be surprised because they have been, yeah, they've proven themselves to be masterful adapters. Do you have anything else you want to say before we end the episode here?
I'm really looking forward to what's in store next. Although I don't know if I'm as like, oh, I need the next volume right now, like I was previously with that cliffhanger. Oh my gosh, that cliffhanger. Huh.
Yeah, that was a very good cliffhanger.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, where's the rest of it? Like, come on. But I am still excited to read, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so stoked for the next arc. Really, really can't wait to see what it's got in store for us. But with all of that said, if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by rating our show on the podcast platforms and subscribing to our channel, Umami Manga, on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about Volume 19. Bye bye!
See you later. Look who's back. It's Petter.
Yay!
Dur, 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 dur.
I should do like this little shimmy dance, like it
Ba-da-da,
felt like something like
da-da.
that. um
Come on down.